Hi, my name's Suzanne Day, and I have run a charity and a business for stopping domestic violence, and I'm also a healer. And today I'm actually reading a little bit of information from this book here, which is Trauma and Recovery, which is a great book that deals with trauma. It's by Judith Herman. And so the bit I'm going to read is called Total Surrender. And this book is called Trauma and Recovery. Okay. So, terror, intermittent reward, isolation, and enforced dependency may succeed in creating a submissive and compliant prisoner. But the final step in the psychological control of the victim is not completed until she has been forced to violate her own moral principle and to betray her basic human attachments. Psychologically, this is the most destructive of all coercion techniques, for the victim, under duress, participates in the sacrifice of others. That she is truly broken. In domestic battery, the violation of principles often involves sexual humiliation. Many battered women describe being coerced into sexual practices that they find immoral or disgusting. Others describe being pressured to lie to cover up for their mate's dishonesty, or even to participate in illegal activities. The violation of relationships often involves the sacrifice of children. Men who batter their wives are also likely to abuse their children. And prisoners, even those who have successfully resisted, understand that under extreme duress anyone can be broken. They generally distinguish two stages in this process. The first is reached when the victim relinquishes her inner autonomy, worldview, moral principles, or connection with others for the sake of survival. There is a shutting down of feelings, thoughts, initiative, and judgment. Prisoners who have lived through this psychological state often describe themselves as having been reduced to a non-human form, and I became more and more frightened, scared of everything. The very thought of trying to escape was terrifying. I had been degraded every possible way, stripped of all dignity, reduced to an animal, then to a vegetable. Whatever strength I had began to disappear. Simple survival took everything. Making it all the way to tomorrow was a huge victory. And in the year and a half I spent under house arrest, I devoted much thought to my attitude during torture sessions and solitary confinement. I realized that instinctively I developed an attitude of absolute passivity. I felt I was becoming a vegetable, casting aside all logical emotions and sensations. Fear, hatred, vengeance for any emotion or sensation meant wasting useless energy. This state of psychological degradation is irreversible. During the course of their captivity, victims frequently describe alternating between periods of submission and more active resistance. The second irreversible stage in the breaking of a person is reached when the victim loses the will to live. This is not the same thing as becoming suicidal. People in captivity live constantly with the fantasy of suicide, and occasional suicide attempts are not inconstant with a general determination to survive. In fact, this describes the wish for suicide in those extreme circumstances as a sign of resistance and pride. Suicide is in this state means introducing into your daily life something that is on par with the violence that is actually around you. The stance of suicide is active. It preserves an inner sense of control. The captive asserts his defiance by his willingness to end his life. It is an attitude of absolute passivity. Prisoners who have reached this point of degradation no longer attempted to find food or to warm themselves. They made no effort to avoid being beaten. They are regarded as the living dead. The survivors of extreme situations often remember a turning point at which they felt tempted to enter this state, but made an active choice to fight for life. And I can really relate to this because it's what happened to me. So that might be helpful for someone recovering from trauma and recovery. It kind of explains how you feel and what happens to you. And I found this book really helpful to explain what was happening and why I felt the way I did. Okay, thank you.